There you go. Got you on YouTube. How about that?
There we go. All right, let me mute this. Okay, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the No Names All Game preview show. It is October 28th. We are looking ahead to the big matchup against Ohio State, what should be a whiteout, 7:30 kickoff. My name is Chris Henkin, joined as always by my co-host Pat Colicchio, and we have a couple very special guests joining us today, friends of the program from For the Bloggy. We've got writer Jeff Rice. We've got film expert Nick Coach Caduti. Guys, thanks for joining us. How are we doing tonight?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Love it. Yeah, thanks for being here. I know we were just chatting a little bit before we started. So Pat and I, obviously, longtime Penn State fans and kind of just, do this as an outlet for us to talk about the team. But you guys are a little bit more expert than us in a couple areas. So let's start with some background of kind of your experience with Penn State, with football, and kind of everything. Jeff, why don't you start us off kind of how you got into all this and how you got connected with For the Bloggy?
Sure. I covered Penn State for about 14, 15 years. I started out with the Daily Collegian, then went on to the CDT, then went on to Lions 24/7, and lots of writing, a little bit of video and blogging here and there, and then lots of social media. And For the Blog, I know the founder of For the Bloggy. We go back a long way. He asked me if I wanted to get involved, and I loved his approach of incorporating some kind of different content than a lot of the traditional outlets are doing, and Coach has done a great job with his video breakdowns, and I'm trying to add a little bit of my perspective, whatever that's worth, on Sundays with the Sunday column. And last Sunday was an interesting one to start with. Hopefully it's a little more, I don't know what I'm looking for this weekend. It's going to be crazy. I think it was a very 2020 game. Last weekend.
It really was. I mean,
it's
the Murphy's Law of this year. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's funny. I was talking to whoever runs the For the Bloggy Twitter to kind of set this all up, and when he mentioned your name, pretty sure I used to read your stuff on 24/7. So glad that we got to connect. That's pretty awesome, and ready to hear what you have to say for this game. Coach, from what I understand, you don't. Maybe not necessarily a Penn State fan, but you are a real life actual football coach who knows the X's and O's a lot more than us, and doing some good teaching through these film breakdowns. How'd you get involved in all this?
So, I'm actually from Pennsylvania originally. I grew up in Philadelphia. My parents lived in Pittsburgh, just outside of Pittsburgh for the past 10 years. So Pennsylvania's always my blood. I love Penn State, but really I love breaking down film. I've coached in college. I coached at BYU for a while, LA Valley Community College. Right now, I'm an offensive coordinator at a 6A high school in Texas, and that's why I moved here, because if you're not going to do a college thing, you better do Texas.
Yep.
So I told them the other day, we had 2 weeks ago, we played a game at Kyle Field at A&M. We had 16,000 people at it.
Wow,
that's awesome.
It was insane. And so but that's here it's nothing to get 5,000 to 10,000 people at a high school football game. So. But I really enjoy it. I started YouTubing video breakdowns about a year ago because I get a lot of people asking about I played for guys. I played for Shanahan, right? I was actually an offensive lineman. I was 350 pounds when I played. So believe it or not, I was actually recruited by Larry Brown to be the long snapper at Penn State in 2001.
Wow.
And chose to not swallow my pride, and I went to the University of Kansas to play offensive line. So we all know what Kansas does, and we all know what Penn State does. So I swallowed my pride. But I just, I did a bunch of breakdowns, and I got, I made a little business out of it because I really enjoy it. And the owner of For the Blog, he just got a hold of me one day because he found my video and liked what I did, and trying to give a coach's actual true X and O game point. Jeff does a great job writing, and I am not as smooth with my words as he is by any means, but I can help people understand just why, how, what to expect, what they're thinking, what the chess match is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's how we first saw For the Bloggies, through some of those videos. Then Jeff, I started reading some of your stuff, and it's funny you say how you guys kind of wanted to take a different approach to some of the regular content. That's kind of how we started this whole thing too. We are just two average fans who love shooting the shit about this team, with friends over a beer, and we're like, you know what? a lot of the stuff out there right now is the very professional, is the very, 24/7s and some of the others, which is great. And we love that. But we wanted to kind of have that average fan group. So I think we come from similar beginnings. So obviously we're looking at Ohio State. Like I mentioned, 7:30 game. Not a whiteout. I'm repping my white, trying to give a little bit of feel here. So we all know Ohio State's story. 13-1 last year, winning the Big Ten, losing to Clemson in the first round. Had a strong opening week, beat Nebraska 52-17. And now we have a challenge coming after a loss. We got to put it behind us quick. So typically what we do on these, we start with a what to watch for, something that you're looking at, whether it's a particular matchup, a position group, maybe an improvement from game 1 to game 2. Jeff, let's start with you. What's something that you are looking for, watching for in this game that you're hoping to see?
I'm going to go with Justin Fields against Penn State's defensive line. And I didn't watch a lot of the Ohio State game last week, but I watched the first half, and Nebraska kind of hung around, but Fields was pretty sharp. I don't know when he missed his one incompletion, but I didn't see it, but I saw a lot of the completions, and I think Penn State's going to have to get some pressure on him. I think that's true for any opponent they play, but especially this guy, how good his receivers are, how accurate he is. They don't need to put him on the ground 4 or 5 times, but they need to get in his face. And I thought they did a pretty good job with Michael Penix. Penix just made some really good throws in the second half with guys draped all over him. And, I think Penn State's defensive line is going to be a strength all year.
We lost Jeff. See, this is the beauty of live broadcast.
It is. It's a great picture, though.
Yeah, it's very flattering.
No, absolutely it is.
All right. Well, we'll hope to get Jeff back. Pat, let's pivot to you. What are you looking for in this week?
To me, it kind of seems like a battle of strengths on weaknesses. Like, I didn't think Ohio State's run defense was very impressive against Nebraska. They were giving up 6 yards a carry. Our running game, I think, can be a strength. Sean Clifford accounted for a lot of our yards, but that's a legitimate part of our offense. And then there's Justin Fields, who is incredible, and they've got Chris Olave and the other receiver whose name escapes me at the moment. And I don't think our defensive back play is tremendous yet. I think it's probably the worst part of our defense. It's going to be things like that. Also, I didn't think Ohio State's offensive line looked anything special for them, and that's definitely the best part of our defense. So it's going to be, to me, it's like whose strengths carry over whose weakness in this one.
Yeah, so you're what to watch for is a little bit of everything. I like that. That's a nice encompassing to put it all in there. Jeff, do we have you back?
How long was I talking to myself, guys? What was the last?
I don't think it was that long. We heard you talk about Penix making some good throws, being draped on. Heard about Fields' incompletion, and if I remember correctly, his incompletion I think was a drop. It wasn't even his fault. But I think you were wrapping up. You were towards the end of the Justin Fields. What else?
Yeah, and I think Jason Owa had a great game. I think Shaka obviously is a pretty good player, and I want to see what he's going to do at 250 pounds this year, after being really good at like 220 the last few years. So I think if those two guys and the whole line, I think Shelton and Mustipher played pretty well last week too. But if they can at least apply some pressure, at least get him off his rhythm, give those corners a chance to, have a chance and make him throw the ball earlier than he wants to, they're still going to make big plays, and he's going to make some big plays with his feet, but they can't just let him, get into rhythm and go up and down the field on them, or it's going to be a really long day no matter what Penn State does on offense.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Coach, we've seen a couple of your videos breaking down Clifford's mechanics, breaking down Shiraka's offense. The one that you just put out about the Indiana game, I thought was really interesting to talk about Cliff on the run and some things that worked and didn't work. What's something that you're looking for maybe in that area for this next game?
Really, I think the biggest issue is you can tell Shiraka didn't have Clifford in that offense in the spring. So I think it was a hard time understanding the chemistry between it all. And Noah Cain going out early was a big deal because they really are going to lean on him to carry the load. And Journey did a good job, but I believe Noah is going to be the focal point of what they're doing zone wise. But the problem I think with what you're really going to see is how is Shiraka going to mold his offense and his philosophy to what his kids are. Freiermuth is a phenomenal athlete. We talked about that already. He's a phenomenal tight end, and he did a great job of finding ways to get him the ball. Get little slip screens off the edge, He did a great job getting him on a stick and nod. But the big thing I think you're going to get into is how does Sean Clifford and how does Soraka mesh together? And how does Soraka get him in a position to be comfortable? Because truly, he's not a drop back guy. I think he wants to be. And a lot of college kids, they try to get into that whole, hey, let's drop back, read progressions. But the reality of it is, hey, Sean, you're an athlete. Get on the edge, get on the run, play action, one read, and let's go. And that's where he shows his strengths. I mean, he did it last year too. And the other reality of it is, you guys talked about Ohio State is an absolutely loaded football team when it comes to talent. And the greatest neutralizer is a running and athletic quarterback because it makes the defense stay honest. So you can't run man cover 2 against a running quarterback because he'll just take off. And that's what we started finding out. You saw, Indiana started getting into cover 1 and he just took off, and he made a couple people miss. Next thing you know, he's sitting in the end zone on 3rd down. And so how can Soraka make that whole thing work? Because his offense is predicated on the quarterback making one read about play action, but you have to get the zone game going first. So I really want to see that chemistry. And the other thing I noticed was you can tell that Clifford is not comfortable with his young receivers yet. Some of the throws that he made to those receivers were not predicated based on progression. They were thrown because of he was on the run, because he had to get rid of the ball. I mean, guys, I watched Parker Washington play down here for 2 years, and that kid is a freak of nature. And people don't understand how big he's 210 pounds. And he's only 5'10", and he can fly. And I think people forget how freakish these athletes are. And he's a 4 or 5 star recruit. So getting him the ball and things like that are going to be really, I think you're going to see the chemistry happen. But I think the one thing people don't remember is there's no home field advantage right now. No matter how much you want it. And in the Big Ten game, guys, anywhere, if there's not a home field advantage, anything goes.
Yeah, and that's obviously Beaver Stadium, the whiteout, that's a home field advantage we love. One quick follow-up on there. So you mentioned Clifford being better on the run, and we saw in the breakdown he had some really, really nice passes on the run. To our blind eyes and maybe some uneducated eyes, it looks like sometimes he's kind of bailing on the pocket before maybe he needs to. Is that something as an offensive coordinator you look at and say, you know what, that's okay because that's his strength? Or is it something you try to fix to have him sit in that pocket to maybe let those routes develop, let him get through the progressions? Do you try to fix that, or do you cater to his strength?
You can tell Soraka changed in the second half where he stopped running deep progression concepts. What he ran was like a 1 or 2 read concept and told him basically run. You can see how he pulls the ball down in a couple balls. He's looking over the middle. His eyes never move. He looks at one guy, and then he rolls and finds path. The other thing I think you got to realize is last year the offensive line at Penn State was a little rough when it came to pass protection. And don't get me wrong, I've known both those offensive line coaches. The offensive line coach right now is a buddy that he recruited us a lot. He's a great guy. Troutwine knows his stuff, and he's getting them right. They look a lot better. But I will say this one thing about the situation is he's not comfortable with his offensive line yet. It's very, very obvious because he never had spring, as the second half happened, you got him on the run. They do a lot of play action, and that's okay. But, man, he has an NFL arm when he's on the run, doesn't think. And, he threw one from the hash to outside the numbers, and it was – guys, that's an NFL throw. So
yeah, I saw that one. I saw that one in your breakdown. I was happy that I caught that. I was like, damn, that's a good throw. I was like, all right, look at me. I know.
That's the one that Daniel George dropped?
No, so there's the one that George actually caught. He's Cliff's on the left hash, throws over to the right numbers, and it's just a perfect throw. And that's one as a fan, again, maybe not understanding, the mechanics behind it all. You're like, damn, why can't he do that every time? But obviously,
it's I don't understand how far a throw is from one side of hash to the bottom of the numbers and throwing on a rope at 25 yards. That's like a 50-yard throw. People don't understand how hard. I try to. this is no lie to you. We've actually gotten parents out before. This is no lie. We got parents out, line them up and say, okay, throw that ball over there. And they're just throwing, they'll just be like, it's a lot harder than it looks, isn't it?
A football field's what, 52 yards wide, right?
53 and a third, man. 53 and a third. So if you throw 20 yards and you throw from a hash outside the numbers, you're looking at almost a 50-yard throw.
Yeah, that'll probably humble some parents. I will not be volunteering for that drill anytime soon.
It ain't me,
with my own arm. Okay, my what to watch for is kind of similar to Jeff, what you talked about. I'm looking at our linebacker group. We've talked about Fields. You have to account for him as a runner. We're going to be missing Jesse Luketa for the first half after that targeting call. I'm kind of interested to see how that's set up. So we should see We should see Brooks, Smith, and Dixon as your starters. We saw a couple times this last game where they dropped down to 2 linebackers when you're going extra DB. Brandon Smith was kind of the odd guy out, which was interesting because he seems to be more one of our more athletic linebackers. So I'm interested to see how they play the linebackers against Fields, against this Ohio State offense. Interested is the word I'll use because I don't want to use scared. All right, let's move to don't be surprised if. So this is a bold prediction, something that maybe you think might happen that not everyone else is talking about. Jeff, let's start with you. What should people not be surprised if something happens?
I would say don't be surprised if they continue to try to get the ball to Freiermuth. And I know that was a big concern when Straka got hired because he didn't really use the tight ends that much at Minnesota. And everyone's like, okay, we have this All-America tight end. Is he going to get the ball? And I think, as Coach said, they made a great effort last week to get it to him. Had a touchdown. He had that one catch that he caught that was deflected was insane to me. The announcers barely mentioned it, and I'm like, how did he even do that? But
yeah,
the route running that he's had, I think he's always had that a little bit, but he's developed it even more. And I think Ohio State's going to have a hard time covering him. It'll be interesting to see how they do it. But I think to get him comfortable, and I agree that Clifford is better on the move. I think they need to go to 87, at least until they start to get comfortable with these young receivers. It'd be great if they could run the ball a lot. I don't know if they're going to be able to run it to the extent that they did last week against Ohio State. I think Clifford's going to have to throw. They're going to have to throw on first down. They're going to have to kind of push it. And if they take Freiermuth out of the game, maybe they can find. I think Chirac is smart enough to find opportunities elsewhere, but especially when they get toward the red zone, he's going to be a big target, a big factor. And if he doesn't have 5 to 7 more catches again this week and most weeks, I'd be surprised. Or that's a big defensive effort from Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that'll be a focal point for sure. I was looking at some of the Ohio State press conference stuff today. Sean Wade, their DB, gave him a shout out. Said Freiermuth ran a stick and nod that was damn near perfect. So they are definitely preparing, and I'm sure they'll give him some extra looks. But yeah, he's got to be the guy. Pat, what's your don't be surprised?
Don't be surprised if Penn State's offense puts up a lot of yards in this game. For one reason, I think the game plan is going to be to keep the ball as long as possible. The best way to defend against Justin Field, I think, is just to keep him off the field. And I think Ohio State, they had a few fumbles against Nebraska that really prevented them from, helped them run up the score, prevented them from scoring. But they were giving up 6 yards of carry on the ground, and Adrian Martinez completed something like 80% of his passes. And I don't think Nebraska's all that good.
Yeah.
And
I think that's fair.
I think Penn State can do better than that.
I mean, let's hope so. Coach, what do you got? Any bold predictions for us?
Really, I'll be honest with you. I thought Scott Frost had a great game plan. That's the only reason it was close early. The reality of it is they're just not physically able to match up. I think that Penn State can match up physically. I think the game plan is going to be there. I think the big issue you got to look at, and to me, don't be surprised if you see Justin Fields struggle. And here's why I believe that. I believe that Justin Fields is a phenomenal talent surrounded by even more phenomenal talent around him. And he does a great job of making plays extend, but he has a terrible time reading coverage, especially when they disguise it. He will predetermine throws early. He will throw into double coverage. You can even see it. Even there's some plays against Nebraska that, he threw a dig one time that should not have been thrown, but because his guy is just better than everybody else, he catches that ball and he gets away with some stuff. I think he gets away with stuff against lesser competition, but I think Penn State's defense is they're going to do a good job, and they're going to do a great job of disguising coverages, of making sure that he has to make right reads. And Jeff said it earlier, the D-line is going to be crucial. If they can get some pressure on him, he's going to make bad decisions, and don't be surprised if he has a very average night.
See, that's the kind of prediction that gets you invited back on this show. That's
exactly.
The kind of thing we like.
That's what we like to hear.
I really enjoy that prediction. And I mean, you look at, we'll get to predictions in a minute, but I mean, you looked at last year, it was a 28-17 game, and there were some, obvious miscues that kept us closer than it should have been. But the defense held him to 188 in the air, 2 touchdowns, but 188. Their run game really did kill us last year with Dobbins just going kind of crazy. So it'll be interesting to see how they key on him this year. Brent probably have another year to study Fields, to understand his tendencies. My don't be surprised if I'm gonna give some support to my guy Devon Ford. Obviously, he got a lot of coverage last week for the touchdown that shouldn't have been, but a lot of people are writing him off. You know, he kicked himself for that. You know, he learned from it. But I'm hoping he's moved on. He's ready to roll. Everyone's kind of talking about Kevon Lee and Keziah Holmes, the true freshman. Kevon did have, seemed to be the hot hand. People were like, why didn't they ride him more? I don't want to write Devon Ford out. So don't be surprised if Devon Ford has a bounce back game. I'm going to say right now, 70 plus and a touchdown on the ground. That's bold. I make bold predictions that don't often come true, but that's why we do this. I want to see him kind of have that bounce back. Mentally and physically, right? It's the one thing. Hey, you are the number one guy now. Everyone knew Noah Cain was supposed to be number one. He goes out early, and this is Devon Ford's running back room. So, do I think the younger guys will get a lot more carries as the season goes on? Yeah, of course. But don't be surprised if Ford has a better game than you think he's going to, and don't be surprised if he is that number one guy for weeks to come. Yeah, Pat, you mentioned last week Nebraska, their QBs, so they ran for 210 yards on the ground, mostly with their QBs. QBs were averaging 7.5 yards per carry. Adrian Martinez, and then their
also
backup,
a strength of ours running with the QB.
So it'll be interesting. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of ground game getting going there. All right, so let's wrap it up. It is prediction time. Like I mentioned, last year was 28-17. The 2 years before that, everyone remembers our heartbreaking collapses in the fourth quarter. So what do we got for this year? Give us an actual prediction. The line right now is Ohio State as a 12-point favorite. The over-under is up at like 62, 63, depending where you're going. So Vegas is expecting a lot of scoring, but that's a high number if you ask me. So Jeff, if you're looking at this game, what's prediction for a final score?
I just learned, okay, you just said 63, which is crazy because I'm taking Ohio State 34-29. And I don't know how Penn State's going to get 29, but a lot of weird stuff happened on special teams last week, so it might happen again. I think, like Nick said, the talent gap between Ohio State and most of the Big Ten is still pretty wide, but it's not as wide with Penn State. And Penn State's done a good job of kind of narrowing that every year. I think they're going to play hard. I think they're going to hang with Ohio State for most of the game. I think both teams are going to score a lot of points. I just think Penn State's not real cohesive right now. And I think they're going to make mistakes. I don't think they'll be as bad as the mistakes they made last week and not as many in the red zone, perhaps. But they're just not going to be able to eliminate all the mistakes to win against a team like this. 34-29, again, don't ask me how we get to 29, but I think they will cover.
I'll tell you, you're right on that 63. So find a book that has 62 and you're making some money. That's a nice prediction there. I do like the cover though. That's good. Pat, what do you got prediction?
I'm going to go 30-24 Ohio State. I think they just look a little bit better than us right now. Traditionally, Penn State does not come out too great after losses. This might be different because it's not losing to Ohio State and then like that's the big game. This is the disappointment. I don't know. But I think our defense might be a little bit, kind of well suited for this. And I think we're going to just do our best to keep Justin Fields on the sideline as much as we can.
Yeah, so you've got us covering the 12, but going under. I guess 63 is really high. I know these offenses can score, but that is really high. Coach,
I'm an under guy
here.
I'm going to go against the grain, guys. I've seen Soraka play. I've seen him manipulate defenses again with a much less talented Minnesota team against phenomenally high talented teams he played. He's going to control the ball, especially early on. They're going to keep Ohio State's offense off the field. Vegas knows something for a reason. That's why they make a lot of money. But I will say, here's two things I'm going to tell you. One, you saw a very cohesive Ohio State against a very subpar talented team. It's easy to look cohesive when the team in front of you is not talented. Now I'll say this: Penn State struggled a little bit, but I'm telling you right now that was a kick in the teeth of reality, and those kids are going to come to play. And I think it's going to be 31-27 Penn State, and here's why. Because I'll tell you, this is the only reason why. I still remember that Clemson game in Ohio State not being able to finish those drives in the first half that ended up killing them. I think they struggle in the red zone. I think Day has always struggled in the red zone, and I don't think they have that huge target that's going to take care and going to be able to take advantage of being inside the 10-yard line. They're going to make them kick field goals when they should score touchdowns, and I think Penn State's going to win.
Okay, I love it.
You're killing this right now. We like this vibe. This is good stuff.
Well, I better be right.
Yeah, hey, we're
When
fingers
you
crossed.
think
Dude.
about it, the defense really should have allowed 20 points last week. Like
Yeah.
the game should have ended at 21 or 24-20. The defense did its job to what it should have had to do. And then those other points were just,
You can't overthrow a slip screen by 10 yards.
also true.
Like 10 of those points, they had the ball inside our 40-yard line.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah,
about
you take away that second interception.
He gave him 7 on a crosser. He overthrew Prime. Prime is the tallest receiver in the Big Ten, and he overthrew him at 10 yards.
I do have to ask you this, Nick, though. Like, you from the film I've been watching, the breakdown that you do, Sean Clifford gets in trouble when his footwork seems to be bad, when he's not transferring his weight properly.
Right.
But then how is he so good at throwing on the run?
Because he's not thinking. Because when he throws on the run, there's nothing in his face. He just delivers a strike. Every time he's in the pocket and he thinks, you watch him, his elbow drops and he starts to lean back and never drops in his throw. Anytime you see a kid lean back and his elbow drop, ball sail. Every time. And that's why. But when he's on the run, he's following his ball. His hips are straight and he delivers a nice. He's got a good delivery when he sets his feet. Consistency in your footwork equals consistency with the ball.
So Sean's like a guy who misses 4-foot putts, but just buries 25-footers, basically.
Here's the crazy part about Sean. Sean's from St. X, right? And St. X is a phenomenal football program. In fact, the offensive coordinator right there is one of my best friends, Andrew Coverdale. And the receiver that they're bringing in, his brother, is a freak, okay?
Liam.
But that's a well-coached football team. Sean's a well-coached quarterback. But he's also – they need to understand. I'm praying to God they understand, like, he's not a drop-back kid. Get him on the run, get him on some boots, get him on the edge. And I think if they figure that out, they're going to win a lot of games this year.
Play to those strengths. Listen,
Hey.
I had an actual prediction and an optimistic prediction. I'm going to take those good vibes. I'm throwing the actual one out the window. The optimistic is now the actual. Penn State's winning this thing, 38-28. I don't know how it happens, but it's going to happen. Offense is figuring it out. Defense is going to. I really do love this defense. Back to that point of, we should have kept him to 20. That crosser to Fryermuth that he missed. I mean, that guy could have been gone if he beats the safety, but you give them the ball on the 4-yard line and they punch it in. So I think our defense did a great job. Everyone's going to remember for how do you let them march down the field with a minute 40 left? You can't expect that. You just can't.
What did Indiana end with? Like 218 yards total?
Mm-hmm.
It was insane. And then you take, some very untimely penalties for a Penn State team that hasn't really been penalized too much over the last few years. And, I'm not saying they were bad calls, but they were just really at bad times to have those calls. They extended drives and cost you a linebacker for a half of this game, which
I'll be honest, I thought that one was a bad call.
I'll say it. Some of them are bad calls. I thought the targeting one, I will forever be an advocate that there needs to be levels of targeting. That was a kid trying to make a clean hit and somehow got a little bit of incidental.
Hey.
You can't kick a kid out for that.
To this day, he did not get in the end zone on 2-point conversion. Not anybody says.
I agree with that.
That we can all agree. I think
Yes.
if DraftKings is saying it's a bad call, then it's and giving people
Right.
back.
Right.
The other thing is, like, let's get real. Like, how do you not tell that kid to not get a score touchdown?
I know.
Like, that's something. This is no lie to you. Last year, I told a kid the exact same thing because you have to know. They could have literally ran the clock out with and have 15 seconds left.
Yep.
It happens, and then it happens again in the NFL the next day.
Did you guys see there's a clip going around on Twitter today where you actually get the audio from the huddle and Matt Ryan is looking at Todd Gurley going, "Hey, don't score. Get the first, get down." Todd Gurley goes, "Okay, I got it."
And
scores.
I think kind of the same thing happened, if I'm being honest.
I don't know.
I've heard multiple players say that it was known not to score. And my guess is Devon Ford went through that line expecting them to try to tackle him.
Yeah.
And he just came through so much cleaner than he thought.
Was like, oh. Well,
what do I do now?
I mean,
I don't think they expected Indiana to let them score. Is really, and it was just like he was going to burst through the line and try and get a first down, and totally ice the game.
And
it is what it is.
He didn't sprint across the goal line. He
you saw him try to slow down.
The one and then just
well, because
it was like
there's a clip somewhere of the sound, and you can hear him go, "Stop!"
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where that's football intelligence that, and I'll be honest with you, kids don't have right now. 20 years ago, that he would not have scored. But right now he would have, because again, it's football knowledge. I mean, Guys, to this day, I am in 6A football in Texas in a program that's state ranked, and to this day, I still have to scream at kids to get away from a punt.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah.
Like, get away from the punt.
Yeah.
You know,
Hey, everybody wants the flashy
try
play.
to get around it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So kids are kids, man. When you had your career based on between 18 and 21-year-old kids, anything can happen.
Yeah, it's true. And like I said, that's why he's my bold prediction to go off. I think he's going to learn from that. I'll tell you this, he's never going to make that mistake again after having that happen.
Or he'll get stoned.
Yeah. It's a tough lesson to learn, but learn nonetheless. We are on to Ohio State. We got some bold predictions. We got some winning predictions. And I am excited for this game. You know, it took some time. I think the first day or so after Indiana, your kind of spirits are down, but it's a weird year. Games are getting canceled. Wisconsin, Nebraska just got canceled, which sucks. We are playing a football game. We are getting to watch our team. These things are exciting. Quick shout out to the 4 people who are watching this live. So we have increased our audience. Thank you to you both for coming on. Shout out to For the Bloggy. If you guys are listening to this, if you're watching it the next day, check them out on Twitter at For the Bloggy. Really, really great content. Thank you guys for coming on. This was a blast. I would love to have you on again sometime during the season. Any parting words for the fans?
Don't give up hope, guys. It's a weird year.
Don't come to State College. Watch the game from wherever you are.
That's a good one as well. Be safe. Enjoy watching from home. Let's go State. Let's get a win.